the Giants co-owner, John Mara. John, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Michael. How are you?
All right, John, how would you categorize this whole thing? Now that it's finally over, what would you say about it?
Well, I'll tell you what, it seems like it was a lot more than 120 days, I'll tell you that. It was a long, tough process, tough negotiation, but at the end of the day, I think both sides compromised a bit, and I think we came out with a fair deal. I don't think either one of us are thrilled with everything that's in there, but I think it is a fair deal, and I think the best news for the fans is that it's a 10-year deal, and they're not going to have to read or hear about this for another 10 years. So I think for the league as a whole, for the clubs and for the players, it's a very good development.
Do you feel you left the game in a chaotic state for the next couple of weeks?
I don't think so, Mike. I certainly think you're going to have a flurry of signings and players changing teams, and yeah, it's going to be pretty hectic for the next 10 days or so. But then I think once everything settles down, we'll start playing games, and it'll be back to business as usual. But certainly the next 10 days to 2 weeks is going to be very, very hectic. There's going to be a lot of activity going on, and you're going to have to pay attention because there are going to be a lot of player transactions happening in a hurry.
Is there anything that dealt with what's going to go on here in the next couple of weeks, John, that the players had to have, or anything that the owners had to have that dealt with what's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks specifically?
Well, other than trying to agree on schedules and whatnot, I don't think there was anything that we either side absolutely had to have them, and the players certainly were very strong about wanting to have some different work rules in effect, and limiting the amount of time that they were on the field, and the amount of contact and everything, and we made several compromises on some of those issues. Those were very important to them, and I think in the long run, it's going to be a good development. It's going to help player safety. It's going to get them off the field a little bit more. And to be honest with you, I was never a huge fan of the two-a-day practices in the summer anyway. I just not really sure what you accomplish by doing that, other than wearing guys out and getting more guys hurt. So I think we made a lot of adjustments, a lot of compromises that I think in the long run are going to be good. Was this necessary? Could this have been accomplished back in March, or was there stuff here that couldn't have been accomplished back in March? Well, I don't know, Mike. I think we probably could have gotten it done a lot earlier, but a lot of times in labor negotiations, you feel that way, but until both sides are under the gun and really feel the pressure of the calendar, oftentimes deals don't get done, and that's exactly what happened here. I don't think either side felt like they were under a lot of pressure back in March, but I'll tell you what, as we got through the month of July here and we were closing in on training camps opening, I know both sides felt some pressure to get this done, and I'm just thankful that we were able to do it without having to cancel any preseason games other than, of course, the Hall of Fame game.
We're talking with John Mara about what happened today. All right, let's get to a couple of Giant things specifically. How much different will training camp be now that you're not in Albany this year and you're in your Timex Center there, and how imperative was it that you made this move?
Well, the problem was we just didn't know when this deal was going to get signed, and we had to let the University at Albany know by a certain point whether we were committed or not, and if we ran past certain dates, there would have been penalties due, and they had to make other plans. So we had to make a decision, last week, I guess it was, and it's a shame because we did want to go back up there, and I did explain to them and to the mayor that we would promise to be there in 2012, but there just came a point in time where we had to decide one way or the other. So camp will look a little different this year. I mean, the players will stay in a local hotel, and we'll be using our own fields, and we're still trying to figure out, how to let the public watch practices. We're going to put probably some temporary stands up, and we'll work it out, and we'll get through it, and it'll be a good training camp. And I know our guys are excited to get going. I know the coach can finally draw up one calendar as opposed to the million calendars he's drawn up over the last few months with each pass passing day.
What have the coaches been doing, John? I'm sure every team's a little different, but what have most teams been doing with their coaches over this time?
I mean, they've watched a lot of tape. I know they've prepared for each one of our opponents this season and done a lot of player evaluations. I mean, we still have a free agency market that we're going to have to get into, and they've done a lot of work on looking at potential free agents. So they've been pretty busy. You know, when you work for Tom Coughlin, you're still going to be pretty busy. And he did give them time off a little bit earlier than they normally would have had it, and I think that's a good development because these guys do work very hard.
Do you expect, considering we're talking with John Mara, the co-owner of the Giants, do you expect most teams, and then I'll get specifically to the Giants, do you expect most of these free agents, considering the time constraints, one agent explained it to me like you want to make sure that you have a chair when the music stops for your player. Do you expect a lot of players to come back on one-year contracts just because that's the most expedient and the safest thing to do in this process?
I think it depends on the player. I mean, I think the marquee players, the guys that are really in demand, are going to be able to sign long-term
Those
contracts.
guys are special, but what about the rank and file?
I think a lot of those contracts could be shorter-term contracts. I think that's certainly a possibility. It's going to be a very hectic period, and you're not going to do what you usually do in free agency and bring guys in and show them around and, wine and dine them and all that other stuff.
One offer is going to be your best offer,
well,
right?
I think that could very well be the case, yes.